Okay, so welcome. It's really lovely to see your faces and your names, those of you who don't put your cameras on, but that's okay. I know what it feels like on a Saturday morning. You don't necessarily want everyone to see your face. Anyway, I hope you had a really lovely festive break and the new year has started well for you, and I wish you so much goodness for this year, so much happiness and good health and everything that brings you joy. I know Christmas can be for many people a mixture of a good dose of joy, but also stress. And I have spoken to several people who were pleased to get back to some type of routine and normality in January. I think it's I think our routines just go a little bit crazy over the season, plus family and everything else. So I know a few of my friends and some of my colleagues are like, oh, thank God, just get back to some kind of normality. And this our Wellbeing at Home event on a Saturday is part of my normality and my routine. So we're now into our third year of these events, which I can't believe. I don't know where the time has gone. And we started them in lockdown in 2020. I know many of you here have been with us since then. And I'm really happy to say that we've got lots of great new resources and experts to bring you this year, plus our regular monthly Kundalini yoga classes. Those of you who haven't tried it, please do come along and try it, because I'm such a big advocate of Kundalini yoga. I'm always pushing it. I'm like a pusher, Kundalini pusher. And if you can't come to the classes or any of the events, they're always available. We record them and they're always available on our Wellbeing at Home website or on our YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. And especially with the yoga classes, you can practice and watch them at any time. I replay those and I use them when I want to do some yoga. So today, I am delighted to introduce to you Katherine Baldwin, who is an ex-Reuters political journalist and has a very interesting story, which she's going to tell us about. I got to know Katherine last year because we worked a little bit together on one of her retreats. She runs retreats that we were promoting it on our website, which was about love. We can touch on that later. And I thought it would be great to start this year with a kind of big, bold intention, like finding your passion and purpose again. Because I think many of us introduce these New Year's resolutions, like losing weight, getting fit, and those kind of things, or eating less sugar. But I really believe, and I've seen it with myself over many years, it's quite difficult to become the best version of ourselves if we are fundamentally not happy with what we are doing or the situation we're in. And if we're in a good situation, we're in flow, we can make those changes much more easily than if we're just not happy with our life situation. So welcome, Katherine, and thank you for being with us today on a Saturday morning. Really lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Stella, and hello, everyone. Nice to see you all.
And I thought we would kick it off by just talking about you, because you've got quite an interesting story. And tell us what led you to do the work that you're doing now, because I've introduced you on the emails and the newsletters about you being a transformation coach, and you do a lot of work, and you're an author, of course. You wrote a book too. But tell us what led you here.
Yes, so what you just said, Stella, really touched me about being fundamentally unhappy in our lives, or in what we're doing. And it took me right back to I was in my mid-30s working as a political journalist for Reuters. I worked in the Houses of Parliament, beautiful place to work. I sat just underneath Big Ben in my office. I went to Downing Street in the morning for press conferences. I often flew on the Prime Minister's plane all around the world, to the White House, to often, I'd go to Iraq, I'd go to Afghanistan, I'd go to Tokyo. So it was kind of my dream. It was something that I had worked so hard for many, many years. Prior to that, I worked for Reuters in Brazil. I worked in Mexico for Bloomberg. So I'd had this incredible international career, which is what I kind of dreamed about when I watched Kate Adie in Tiananmen Square on TV when I was a little girl. And I said, I want to do that. I want to be a journalist and travel all over the world. And I was. But I think by the time I was in my mid-30s, it was a high adrenaline job. It was a very exciting job. And it was kind of a wow job. You told people what you did and they went, wow. But it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. It was basically just, I just write, the Prime Minister says something and I write it down. And although I'm interested in politics, I just wasn't interested in doing that anymore. And it just wasn't floating my boat. And I remember, I had a little Vespa and I'd scooter into Parliament and I'd sit down at my desk and I'd switch my computer on and my soul would go to sleep. The light inside me would go out.
Did you realize that at the time? Did you actually consciously say to yourself, I'm not, this isn't doing it for me anymore?
I know I felt something. I mean, it's a good question because we're sort of in denial often for a long time, aren't we? Yeah. So I think there was a lot of denial. There were definitely tears on the way. I remember crying on the way. A lot happened at that time. My dad died when I was in my mid-30s. I was single. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have children. And I think I was coming to this place in life where, what have I been striving for? What have I been working so hard for? The only thing I felt I had to show for my life was this amazing career. But then I wasn't loving my career anymore. And I felt depressed and I cried. And so there was a lot going on at that time. I'd also realized, come out of denial about the fact that I had an eating disorder, dysfunctional eating patterns, like binge eating, starving, compulsively exercising. So there's a lot to say about my story. But I knew I was unhappy. And I knew that job just wasn't doing it for me anymore. But, and many of your audience might relate to this, I didn't have a clue how to get out of it. I had the mortgage, big mortgage, flat in London, single, no partner, no financial support, no support from parents. Like, how on earth do you change?
What did you do? Tell us.
Well, in my case, I hit the wall. And one of my passions is to support people and to talk about this so that people, especially women, can make some changes before they hit the wall, before they hit burnout, before they break down, before they hit serious depression. Because as many of you will know, once you're in that hole, it takes huge amounts of energy to get out of it. But I did. My dad had died. I was very lonely, I guess. Great friends, but deep down quite lonely. And I hit the wall. I went on a well-being retreat myself, and on that retreat, it was pointed out to me that I was most probably depressed. And I came back and there was no other option. I went to my GP and they signed me off work sick with a whole list of things: depression, anxiety, bereavement, grief. And that was a massive thing because I was a Reuters journalist. There were 3 Reuters correspondents in Parliament. So I was one of 3. I was out. There's a lot of shame associated with that. I don't think there is now, but at the time, I felt some shame. So I took some time out and I tried to get some help, and I did get a little bit of help, therapy and so forth. And I'd already started my journey trying to heal from my eating disorder. So I was part of some support groups. But, I went back to work, and I think it was going back to work that I realized I just can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. How on earth do I get out? And I remember crying and asking that question and just feeling so trapped and so stuck. And I was very fortunate, and, not everyone will be in this position. And I hope, hopefully we can talk about what other people might do if they're not in this position. I think the first thing I did was I put it out there to the world, basically voiced it to myself that I was no longer happy, that I needed to leave this amazing job. I started to tell others, like therapists, friends, and so forth. So I put it out there. And in my case, incredibly fortunately, my intention was met with a wonderful, I suppose, coincidence or universal, I don't know, the universe or God or somebody intervened, and I was offered voluntary redundancy came up in my company. A big company, a Canadian company, bought Reuters. They offered voluntary redundancy, and I didn't think twice about it, which was quite a big deal, because my bosses had no idea. They knew I'd been signed off, but that I was back, and I was, but I just thought, I've got to get out, and this is my out. So I did. I left at that point, sort of late 30s, but obviously not everyone will be in that position.
Sure. So for you, that position came along, that situation came along and allowed you to break free with a little bit of financial backing, I guess. Yeah. But we'll come back to the finances, because that's quite an important question.
Yeah.
And a topic I think we need to talk about. But there is still, I understand when you say now it wouldn't be as bad, but I still think there is this, there is still a bit of a shame around, working really hard to get to this, amazing position, and then saying, actually, I'm not happy, I don't want to do this anymore, and stepping away, because you're always going to have those naysayers who are like, well, what's wrong with your life? You've got the best life, and there is that little kind of voice in many people's heads that is saying that, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You've got you've got everything you want, but why are you unhappy? Mm. So I think the first step is recognizing and shutting down that little voice, or other people who are kind of saying, "Oh, just pull yourself together. What's wrong with you? You can have it all." Because I think as women, I don't know if we've got any men on, sometimes too. So as women, and also now I guess increasingly as men, with men too, but as women, we've been taught, our generation, that we can have it all, and so we were going for everything and really going for it on so many different levels. And then parts of our lives maybe were lacking in things that would fulfill us. But we've been taught to have it all, so, and personally, I don't think that's possible. You can't have everything, you have to prioritize what's more important to you. So I guess, how, like for you, you got your redundancy money, and then you decided, was it very clear to you what you wanted to do next? Had you already thought about that?
I had some ideas, but no, I was completely clueless, really. I mean, my first idea was I was going to transition from being a journalist to being a aid worker. So I was going to stay in the same high adrenaline vein. But I'd reported on a couple of disasters and emergencies in various parts of the world, and hadn't had the best. I don't know. I just came away thinking, I'm not sure I want to be an aid worker, actually. No, I didn't really know what to do. But and eventually I ended up going back to Reuters on a sort of 3-day-a-week job in a different branch of the company, which was all about disasters and emergencies, actually, because I was scared. I was scared to go it alone. I was scared that the money would run out. I was scared to trust and believe in myself. But what changed things for me around 40, actually, hitting 40. And I think just turning 40, I was just became very angry with I don't know, I went to this event. Some of you will know the Women of the World Festival on the South Bank. I went to an event there, which was all about women with eating disorders and how we hate our bodies and how we give ourselves a hard time. And I just thought, I'm nearly 40 and I'm still doing this. I'm still sitting on the toilet looking at my thighs. Like, this is ridiculous. Why am I worried about this? And I kind of got really angry, and I channeled that energy into writing. And whereas when I left my journalism job, I thought, that's it, I'm done with writing. I wasn't done with writing. I was done with writing about politics, but I was ready to write about the stuff that really mattered to me. Women, eating disorders, self-esteem, turning 40, single, no children. Like, how did that happen? Like, what was that about? That wasn't the plan. I got really passionate about the stuff that was, and I can feel it now, that was really firing me up. And I started writing about that on a blog. And then I found some courage, and I started pitching stories to magazines on those ideas. So I gradually moved into freelance journalism around the field of well-being, blogging, and that led me, to my book and to my current career. And it came out of sort of frustration and anger and passion and energy that enough is enough. I'm 40. I don't want to carry on living that life. And I've got these skills and these talents, and I'm sure, all of your listeners we've got these skills and these talents. And in many cases, we go into a career because we think our parents wanted us to, or because we think it's safe and secure, or it brings a certain amount of kudos or a certain amount of money or security. And we discover often in midlife that doesn't float the boat anymore. And what are we doing here? And what about that passion or that talent or that creativity? What about that? And, depression, I'll finish on, on this bit, but depression for me, I wasn't the classic depressed person. I didn't struggle to get out of bed. What it was with me, it was suppression of my true self, suppression of my gifts and my talents and my truth. It was suppressing the real me. And that's what caused my depression, as well as probably stuff going on in my, serotonin levels. But the real problem was that I was trapped and needed to break free, and I was suppressed.
Yeah. I think that's that's actually, unfortunately, much more common than we would like out there. And I think so many people are suppressing their true gifts and their talents and all of those things. And that it's interesting that you say that your depression wasn't, the manifestation of your depression was different to what a lot of people think depression is, or other people's manifestation of depression. And I think you're talking about how it turned to anger. I mean, that's quite typical as well, isn't it? Because it starts off as anxiety and depression. And then I think when you can take it into anger, that could be actually quite a healthy emotion, even though we're told anger isn't a healthy, but it can be, because it can kick you into gear to then, like you say, voice that. And it's great. Well, I'm really happy that you did that, and you can share your gifts and your work and everything else, with the world. So I have some questions for you about that can maybe help our audience. So, like, what were the signs that people should look for when they are heading towards burnout? Because especially, like, as I mentioned, with conventional success, like, oh, look, I've got this big high-powered job and I'm a senior executive, or I'm a top journalist, or I'm, whatever it may be. It's that denial. the denial that you're heading towards burnout. And burnout comes, I think, I always say burnout is so much more than hard work. Hard work makes you tired. I work really hard. I don't get burnt out. I have got burnt out in the past. I don't get burnt out because I love what I do, and then when I'm really tired, I stop a little bit and I relax and I do whatever I have to do. So I always say that, like, burnout doesn't, hard work doesn't cause burnout. It's the unhappiness that causes burnout. It's that combination of the two. So how do you recognize what is going on there? Were there any like real signs that you could share with us?
Yeah, I think just about what you said there, if for me, it's like when two parts of us rub up against each other, and that causes the tension. So like there's the part of us that wants to break free and wants to do this and wants to do this. And then there's this other part that's like trapped and stuck and has to go and sit and look at this computer every day. And I think that tension causes the burnout and the stress and the anxiety. I mean, tears is an obvious thing that we want to look out for. When I was in Parliament and taking myself, like reporting on the Prime Minister, writing my stories, and then taking myself into the toilets to cry in between. So we want to look out for tears. We want to look out for whether the things that used to bring us joy are no longer bringing us joy. So, we might still be doing the things that we love, but we feel overwhelmed or we don't feel happy doing them. And for some of your audience, looking out for signs of, which was very, very much my story, of using certain things to smother or suffocate the real feelings, the pain. So I used to overeat in my job. So sugar, carbs, that would give me a hit. It would take the pain away momentarily, and then I'd need more sugar and more carbs. Or alcohol, that would give you a high after work. You go for sort of, for happy hour drinks in Covent Garden, we used to go, but I'd get home and not only would I have a horrible hangover, but I just feel really empty and dead inside. So that feeling, that feeling of sort of deadness. And when you go into work and you switch on your computer or whatever it is that you do, when you start that work, just notice, like, do you sink? Do things feel heavy? Do you feel dead inside? Or do you feel alive and excited? And your energy levels and your health. I mean, I had all manner of things going on in my mid-30s. My hair started to thin. I started to lose my hair because I was stressed out. I had adult acne around my hormonal area. So my health was all over the place, and I didn't have time to look after it.
Yeah, classic signs those are, of course. So you talk a lot about kind of in your work about leading an authentic life. That means lots of different things to different people. I just want to get your take on what that means for you, leading an authentic life.
Yeah. In alignment with who you really are, with your true self. So when we think about work, like you work in alignment with your true gifts and your true talents, and they might, change over the years. I see what I'm doing now as sort of, I bring in all those other skills, like, my curiosity, my asking lots of questions, my journalism, my writing, emotional intelligence, all that comes into. So, this is who I am today at 51. Like, I have all these skills and these talents, and I am trying to work in alignment with who I really am and not pretending. So one of the things that a lot of people like about my work and my retreats and my writing is, I do my absolute best to tell the truth, to be vulnerable and real. Like, I share my story, I share the struggles. And of course, the struggles don't finish. Like, the struggles continue, and I still have to manage my sort of workaholic personality, and my high anxiety, and now I'm in perimenopause, so there's all that to deal with. So trying to be real, for me, it's about being real about who we are. And you will all have authentic relationships. I'm sure you will have a relationship in your life that is authentic, where you can be yourself. And then you might know that you might be able to think of another relationship where you aren't entirely yourself, where you don't tell the whole story because you don't feel you'll be heard, understood, empathized with. And a lot of my work is around finding love. And I was in plenty of relationships in the past where I wasn't my authentic self. You want to stay in and watch TV? Yeah, let's stay in and watch TV. Whereas I want to go out, but yeah, I'll do what you want to do. Or you like smoking dope? Okay, I don't really like smoking dope, but if you like smoking dope, I'll give it a go. Just sort of not trying to fit ourselves into a box and be what other people want us to be. That is inauthentic. And again, that causes depression, the suppression of our true selves. So in alignment with our hearts, with our souls, with who we believe we were meant to be. And that will change, that will evolve. And I think signs of being authentic, living an authentic life, are we feel pretty happy, content.
Yeah, that's a really lovely answer. Thank you. I think that was really, I think it was really well put, very well put. It touched my soul, that answer. So let's get back to the whole, I'm in a great job, pays me a lot of money, but I'm unhappy, I'm bored, or it's toxic, or all of those, those areas we've touched on. How do you get out of that from a kind of money perspective? Like, you're attached to the income, we all have to live, we all have bills, all of those things, number one. But number two, that status element, because a lot of people attach their identity to their job or their position. And money's the normal one that most people will come to. But I've found with lots of people, and with myself in the past, I've seen it where I was like attached to a title, or attached to, oh, look who I am, I've got this position and I've worked really hard to get here. And that's because we're conditioned to look up to people who have things like that, who achieve those things in life, and it's a lot of conditioning. But what's your advice on that?
Thanks for the question. I'm smiling because I know I still find it hard. Like, I'm still tempted to introduce myself as to who I used to be. So when people say these days, oh, what do you do? Even though I absolutely love what I do, and I've been doing it for a good while now, I'm always tempted to say, well, I used to be a Reuters journalist in Parliament, because there's more, status. So I can really, really relate to that. With the money side of things, it's a real dilemma. And I was in that myself, and I didn't know how to leave. And I was very fortunate. But I think the first thing is to do what I did, which was recognize that we actually do really want to leave, and to put it out there, and to talk about it, and to tell people, and just to sort of start that conversation and start it moving. Because I believe that just for me, putting it out there, not that I made anything happen, but, my energy changed. I was open. I might not have been open to the redundancy prior to that. I think, I don't want to use a cliche and say, but it is very true that we only have one life, and we only have one body, and we only have one health, So we will all know people. I know people who are very ill with often stress-induced symptoms. And I know the money, the security and all that is important, and we've come to know it, but there is, we can't enjoy that if we're not happy, and we can't enjoy that if we're not healthy. And what I found, I have totally, everything's changed. I used to earn a lot more money than I do now. I used to shop in very expensive shops, had very nice boots that cost many hundreds of pounds. I used to have, lovely clothes, and I can't shop. I can't buy those boots anymore. Hopefully in the future, but not right now. But because I committed to changing, like everything has changed. I no longer have to pay a mortgage on my own. Like that life that I had in London in a 1-bedroom flat in Islington, big mortgage. I changed all that. I've moved to Dorset. I live by the sea, and that move opened me up to relationship and marriage. Now I share the mortgage, and my costs are a lot less. And I think when we're holding on to things tightly, like I do this a lot in my coaching, like, you could all do it now, like that.
Okay, let's try it, everyone. So let's hold on. Yeah.
Let's hold on tightly, like really grip your hands together. Hold on tightly to everything that we've already got, because we don't want to lose it, because we don't feel safe without it. But there's no space, if you think about that, there's no space for miracles. There's no space for movement. So now if you open up your hands and hold on loosely, and just like imagine that you're holding your life, your job loosely. And I believe hopefully your body will have relaxed a little bit, and you're more open to what comes. And it might take, for everyone, it's going to take something different. Like, I have clients who are high-flying bankers who really want to write poetry or arrange flowers, and so how do we get there? And for many, it won't be quitting your job immediately. It will be possibly having a difficult conversation about reducing your hours, or having a Friday afternoon off, so that on that Friday afternoon you can either rest, or you can go and arrange some flowers or write some poetry. It might be about being, I often wonder, if I had been open and honest with my bosses at the time, all I could say at the time was like, I'm done, I've got to leave. But I wonder if they had been open, if I had been open to having a conversation, perhaps I could have moved into a different area. Perhaps I could have moved into coaching within Reuters. So it's about being open to what's possible. Like maybe that you could drop a day, maybe you could, the idea of side hustle to me freaks me out a little bit, because it implies that we're doing 2 jobs at the same time. And as a recovering workaholic, it's a bit too much. But, these people who've started their business in the evenings, and if you can do it, brilliant, if you've got that level of energy. But I prefer a sort of gentler route, which is, where can I find, how can I reduce my time spent there? And one of the things I talk to my clients about, many of us we don't have any energy left because we're over delivering, because we don't believe in ourselves. We don't believe in our value and our worth. So we have to give more than is required. So we give 120%. We give extra minutes, extra hours of our day, and then there's nothing left. So that's the first little step we can take, which is hard but simple, which is like, where are you over delivering? Now carve a little bit of that energy back for yourself. Leave work on time, take your lunch break, walk around the block in your lunch break, do a half-an-hour Pilates class or whatever you can do, take some photographs, write a little bit in your notebook. How can you gently bring in bring in these other little activities that might guide you in the right direction. But yeah, I think the fact that we all over deliver, I over deliver all the time, because my self-worth journey is ongoing progress, not perfection. So, and I notice when I over deliver that the plan that I had to get to the gym or swim or Pilates, can't do that anymore because I've over delivered. So how can, that's a knock-on effect, a negative knock-on effect. How can you have a positive knock-on effect? Okay, I'm going to not under-deliver, although some of us can under-deliver and still deliver 100%. You know, how am I going to ring fence my energy, my time, the things that are important to me? Yeah,
that's thank you. A lot of wisdom in the answer. There's multifaceted, lots of wisdom there, of course. And yeah, you're absolutely right about the over delivering. I think that's our generation as well. I see the younger generation now, and they don't have that. They do ring fence a lot. I'm generalizing, but a lot of them do, you know, ring fence themselves and protect the things that are important to them. So I think that's generational, and it's conditioning as well, because we've always taught you have to work really, really hard to make it, you know, and so that kind of became ingrained in our psyche. Now coming back to like the passion and the purpose, and you touched on it just now when you were mentioning about, you know, if you like flower arranging or you know, if you like gardening or whatever, like, you know, how do we identify what our passion and purpose is? Because if we like flower arranging, it's a really good example, can we make that into an income, or is that just a hobby? It's like determining like things like, for example, I love playing the piano. I'm a pianist, I play the piano. And so I'm nowhere near good enough to bring an income from my piano playing, you know, but I'd love to, I have a little fantasy to play jazz piano in a little club and have my friends there and that kind of thing. But that for me is more hobby, pleasure, passion, rather than like reinventing my life and what I'm doing for it. How do, you know, that was just an example, but how do we identify when our hobby or the thing that we really like doing can bring us something in terms of be part of our lives or be an income? Or, you know, look, saying that, we have people in our audience who've retired as well and have the space and time to do what they want to do too. So
yeah, I just want to talk about that example you just gave, because perhaps you'll, in terms of your being a pianist, perhaps you might not make a career out of it, but it sounds like from your energy, what I hear is that little fantasy, as you call it, would bring you a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And so I would ask, you know, because that sounds absolutely achievable to me, and it sounds like it would add a huge amount to your life. Now, I imagine there are some areas of your life where you're over delivering and you don't have enough energy to pursue this dream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all it might take is next week, you carve out a bit of energy there, and you make one phone call to one little cafe, or you get your vision board and you think out 5 songs that you would play, or and the 5 people that you would invite, or, you know, we start to give our time and energy to that dream. And, you know, if you had that in your life, I mean, who knows whether it could lead to, you know, you might get paid and you might get paid more. But I think what I hear is it would bring you a lot of joy.
Yes. And but that's, you know, I use that as an example, but that is the one, you know, it's that it doesn't have to, you don't have to leave your job
to
do that. I mean, I don't have to shut down Wellbeing Escapes and decide I want to be a pianist. I'd be hungry quite quickly, to be honest. Because I wouldn't make much money if I try to play.
Yeah.
But you know, finding a way to balance the two things. And there's a really good chat that's just come in because this person says they have a full-time finance role, but are just trying to balance that with teaching yoga, which is her or his passion, so that's, this is what I wanted to touch on, because it doesn't have to be either or. I mean, I remember once having a client who, she had a really high level executive, she was an investment banker, and it was just sucking the life out of her. She was not happy, and she really got into yoga and decided that she wanted to become a yoga teacher. So she left her very high flying, very highly paid job and went into teaching yoga, and she did a nutrition course, but it was too extreme. The change was too extreme, and she couldn't make it work, because she was so attached to her lifestyle, her original lifestyle. But looking at it now, I was like, okay, well, you've gone from there to here. And I like this example you made just now about, if she had just all this, or SN, who's just put it on the chat, finding a way to balance them both so that you can stop over delivering and just bringing in the things that bring you the joy.
Yeah.
And sometimes you reevaluate your job, because when you stop over delivering, right, when you stop over delivering, you stop allowing it to suck the life out of you, and you can channel your energy into the things that bring you the joy and the happiness, whether it's playing the piano or yoga or whatever it is, it can it can almost reassess your view of your job.
Yeah, so it's gonna be different for everyone. Some people might find that their banking job, as an example, they're quite happy to continue that if they can start at this time, have a good lunch break, leave at this time, perhaps have Fridays off, and spend Fridays doing the things that they love, and that might be okay for them. I think for me, that sucking you dry phrase that you used, for me, I just didn't feel like I had a choice. I could not continue to do that work. It was kind of killing me. I wasn't being creative, I suppose. I wasn't being creative. I mean, just in terms of finding your passion and your purpose, one clue is often something that brought us to life when we were younger. So often we look at our early life and where did we feel in flow and where did we feel free? And if I think about, reading and writing was always something for me, as well as adventure and curiosity, and imagination. So I'm now writing a novel. So, I'm using different parts of my writing skills. So the things that we enjoyed as children that made us feel free and in flow often are clues. And then the other thing is to look at, all the skills that you have harnessed in your first or second or whatever career, because we don't have to just cut those all off and start again. If I think about my coaching work and my retreats, one thing about my journalism work was I traveled all over the world and I just spoke to loads of people and asked them lots of questions. Who are you? I've always been really interested in people, and as a journalist, that's what I did in my work now. I'm really interested. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to bury down, dig down, and find out who you are. And so I bring my curiosity, I bring my questioning. Like my writing skills, like absolutely essential in my work today, used in a different way, but the writing. So we don't have to let go of all those skills. And I like if you were doing a job that, find the bits of your job that you absolutely love. So maybe you're doing a job that you don't like, but there's a bit of it sort of liaising with people or communicating with people or sitting on your own doing sums, or which bit of your job do you like? and because you can carry that into your next thing. But yeah, it's about finding the right balance. So for some, it will be staying where you are, but carving out more time for the passion projects. For some, it will be having a plan. So how do I turn my passion project into something else, and how long might that take, and what's my plan? A bit like me writing my novel, what's my plan? Now, I've never been much of a planner. I'm more of a like knee-jerk spontaneous.
Yeah.
So and that's a strength and a weakness. It's like, I'm going to run a retreat. My first retreat, I wrote my book. I ran a course online at the same time as I was writing my book. And a couple of months later, I'm going to run a retreat. I didn't plan. I didn't do a financial plan. But it worked, and
but sometimes you have to do that. Otherwise, you don't get anything done if you plan everything.
Yeah.
And that's actually leads to my next question, which is the fear and the procrastination, because we put that in the title of the talk today, because a lot of people will procrastinate making these decisions or doing things which are important to them deep down. There is that big and is it true that it's the fear that's actually making them procrastinate? What's your take on that? The fear of change, or the fear of failure, or the fear of
success,
or the fear of success? Yeah.
I mean, most likely the fear is at the root of procrastination. Just as a caveat, sometimes the procrastination is because we're not ready yet, or the time isn't right yet, and so I don't want to dismiss that. Sometimes there's an intuitive sense and we blame ourselves, I'm procrastinating, but sometimes it might be that we sense that it's not time yet. But in many cases, definitely in my case, with many things, the procrastination is, and we have to dig deep into our fears. So I was doing some work yesterday with someone. She was doing work on me, not the other way around. And I was getting to the root of my fears. My success isn't welcome. Visibility is too vulnerable and frightening. It's not safe to be successful. It's not safe to be seen. Now, these are core beliefs of mine that go way back to my childhood, that I don't really know that they're there. And the way they manifest, so those core beliefs are within me. It's not safe to be successful. It's not safe to flourish. It's not safe to earn lots of money. It's not safe to be seen. So they're in me, but I don't really realize they're there. But the way they manifest themselves is in busyness, doing the wrong things, like procrastinating over doing the right things. I did something this week. I'm like, why did I spend a day doing that when this was the priority? Because I'm ruled deep down by this fear of it's not safe to be successful. So I need to work with on a deep level. I need to work with that. So my work is always on 2, if not many more levels. But there's the inner work, and there's often the historical work. So the deep inner work, what are your inner blocks, and are they historical? Do they come from your past? Do they come from your childhood? Do they come from your early life? And we need to work on that. And then the other level is the present day practical. What steps can we take? And both those things need to be worked on at the same time, because we try and take a step, but the historical block blocks us, and then we go off in circles and do something else. So we need to work on both levels. We need to do the inner work and the practical present day outer work. But procrastination, I read something this week about procrastivity. Has anyone heard of that?
No, it's a new term for me.
Yeah, it's I've been reading quite a lot about ADD and ADHD, and recognizing myself in some of those ADD traits. And procrastivity is when we're always busy doing stuff, but not the right stuff. So we procrastinate on the important stuff by doing a load of other stuff. So we're always busy, we're always exhausted, we're always overwhelmed, and nothing gets done. The right stuff doesn't get done. So it's about understanding yourself, I think. Like, for everyone, it'll be different.
What's the root of that, basically?
Yeah.
You know, why are we, and I think we're all guilty of that. I mean, I know some people who are not like that, but I know more people who are very busy and don't get done what they need to get done, you know. So but I guess what you're saying is go into what's causing that, you know, what's your self-beliefs, or you know, historical self-beliefs, or looking at that inner work to try and overcome that. It's really good. There's so many layers to this work, you know, about self-development, improving ourselves, getting more out of our lives. I mean, I think with the one thing that you said earlier, we have one life, we have one body, we are, you know, we have health, you know, one set of, you know, it's the wrong way of putting it, but you know, our health is so important to us. So I think that's like so super important to keep remembering that. And for me, it's more about like that daily intentional thing, like just being conscious all the time. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And we, you know, because we fall into patterns, don't we? But this is such a big subject. There is so much we need to talk to you about, because you do, you know, your other part of your work is your relationship work, and you know, like leaving relationships that aren't working for you, or finding new relationships, and you know, finding new love relationships. And I would yeah, we will set up a separate date to have that talk, because I think a lot of people will be interested in that too. There's a lot of courage around that. Before we talk about that quickly, I just want to acknowledge some of these great comments that have come in. Kerry has said to everyone that it's definitely possible to transition to do more of what you love. She's reduced her hours in her job to 3 days a week, and she also teaches Pilates and works as a life coach. So that's a really nice example, but I think that comes back to your point about being open and being clear about what you want, and maybe talking to your employers, or you know, finding a way to make that work. Shirley, lovely Shirley, you can make changes. I can remember walking to work and just wanting to sit on the pavement and go no further. It was the lowest point of my working life. I followed my dream to be a professional freelance community artist and have done this for 20 years. But then the austerity cuts reduced the amount of work available. Oh, bless you. We found each other, Shirley. And she's transitioned again, studying and qualifying as a nutrition and wellness coach. And it's scary building a new business at 57. But, you know, this is the thing. It's like kind of, it's always possible. It's always possible. And it is very much overcoming our fears. Now, I want to just talk about your retreats very quickly, because we're featuring Katherine's retreats. We're going to be tell us about the ones that you're planning over the next couple of months or few months.
Yeah, so I have what I call the love retreat in mid-February, and that is primarily for single women who are looking for a healthy and loving relationship. Now, it's called the Love Retreat because it's about loving yourself, loving your life, and finding love. It happens in Dorset, Southbourne, which is 2 hours on the train from London, in a beautiful B&B guest house very close to the beach. It's a small group retreat. I work with small groups of women, and it's a deep dive, and we look at our blocks, the things that block us from having a healthy and loving relationship with ourselves first, and then with another. So I have that one in mid-February, which Stella will have all the details this coming week on your site.
On the site.
And
if you're interested in any of these, just email me. So we'll put you on like a separate little list and make sure you get the information when it goes live. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And then I will be doing one on this topic. Relight your fire, find your passion and purpose, change your life, change your career, on that topic I just need to confirm the date, but in mid-May. So sorry,
that's in Dorset.
In Dorset too. Yeah. And last year we worked together on a love retreat that I ran in Turkey. So I do run retreats abroad as well. We're hoping to have another one of those, perhaps towards the end of the year or early 2024. People love my retreats. I say modestly, but I think I've run 10 retreats now, women's retreats.
And I think I can see why, because I think it's your openness and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and actually talking about your own story. And, like now you were very vulnerable about you're still working on your own stuff, and we all are, we all have it there. So I think I can understand why they're successful and people love them. And I want to thank you for spending this hour with us. It's been very enlightening. I think these topics are so relevant right now, and it's just interesting to be able to talk about them in such depth with someone who has done the work, and is still doing the work. And that's great. And thank you. I had some personal reminders in there about over giving on some subjects, and then not having time to develop the things that bring me joy, like my piano playing.
Oh, I'd love to see you in that little cafe.
Yeah, exactly. If I ever do that, I'll invite everyone.
Yeah.
But you'll have to be very kind to me and not tell me when I make mistakes. So
maybe we should do let's do a joint event where we do a talk and you play the piano.
Yeah, I think I'd have to be very brave to do that. I have to work on my courage a lot to play the piano, everyone. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And I think, there's great comments here. I think you've inspired people to maybe look at areas of their life, give them some courage. I think it's a perfect talk for the beginning of the year. It really is, rather than talk about losing 5 pounds. We can talk about these really big changes and things that we can do to work on our lives. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming along. Enjoy the weekend and try and stay dry. Where I am, it is bucketing down, but have a lovely weekend, and I will follow up with once we get the dates for Katherine's retreats. We'll follow up to this audience with the dates. If anyone's interested, just let me know anyway in the meantime. And also, I think I attached the link already to your book. It was in the original email. If you want to, find out more about Katherine's work, you can find her on her website as well. So thank you all. Have a lovely weekend.